What's up, guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muckraker. My name is Michelle. Today is February 20th of 2024. And did you know that in 2021, the Chinese UN Peacekeepers were at Camp Grayling for the Operation Northern Strike exercise? Now, I didn't know this either, and I will be completely honest with you, it's very difficult to find information on this topic. I've only found remnants. It's been scrubbed. Anything to do with Jade Helm 15, the operation that happened in 2015 on the southern border with all the southern states. That information is very difficult to find, but I'm going to keep looking. So I have information on China, including the fact that they're using cyanide to destroy the Philippines' water source, the fishery. So the Philippines, they fish a lot. That's one of their main trades. And China is using cyanide poison to stop that, or at least damage their trade. So I have an article on that, which if they're willing to poison their water source near there for political reasons, why wouldn't they poison the water source at Gotion, which I have information on that. The M&M, which is for tree removal and snow plow services in Big Rapids, is actually cutting down some trees now to bring Gotion, at least to start the process to bring Gotion in. So the fight is far from over. In fact, I would, excuse me, I would encourage anybody that can make the next Green Charter Township meeting to show up and see what's going on. I know that it's been a lot of downtime. It's been a while since we've had any new updates, but they are pushing forward after a year of delays. So we need to keep trying to stop them, even though our government doesn't listen to us. Last weekend, Trump was here, and I watched some of the speech. I only got to see like 30 minutes of it. I don't know. I don't know about him. Listening to him the whole time, he was just talking about himself, and so I didn't really get to hear much, and then I had to leave, unfortunately. So I did hear, though, that he said that Hoekstra is the Michigan GOP chair, so Christina Caramo has a response. She is calling out Hoekstra to say, hey, let's have another vote. Let's do it fair and square on this date, March 2nd, I believe. So I have that news. And then Whitmer is trying to get you to house migrants, to help them out, to help them get situated here in Michigan for 90 days, I believe. You have to house them, feed them, clothe them, I guess. So first thing I think is you have two mansions. One of them on Mackinac Island has 10 homes. And then the one in Lansing is 10,000 square foot home with 5 bedrooms and 4 baths. So you have plenty of room to house migrants yourself. You should be first, Whitmer. And I have some information about a French battery recycling plant that started on fire. Excuse me. And EVs, how they force technology on drivers. You cannot operate your EV without a smartphone. So lots of digitization there and loss of freedom. So let's jump in first and foremost. We're going to get into Operation Jade Helm 15 and the Northern Strike. So they both happened. They both started in 2015. Major military exercise starting in northern Lower Michigan. Starting today, parts of northern Lower Michigan will thrum and boom to the sounds of military exercises. More than 2,000 soldiers and airmen will take part in what's being called Operation Northern Strike. The 12-day exercise will combine live ground fire and aerial training at Camp Grayling and other sites. Northern Strike takes place at the same time as another major military exercise in the southwestern United States, known as Jade Helm 15. Jade Helm 15 has been controversial in Texas, where some extreme conservative groups have alleged it's part of federal government conspiracy. They were operating with a lot of civilians. So it was basically operations in a civilian environment, and you have to like win hearts and minds, and figure out who's who. It's very difficult, once again, to find any information on Jade Helm. Almost all of the articles have been scrubbed. You get a 404 code, so something's going on there. Fear, Reality, and Jade Helm 15, another really short article. This was published July 31st of 2015. The U.S. military has been very active in Michigan and around the country this summer. The Pentagon insists it's just routine training, but others see something more sinister at work. The ground shook as Apache helicopters fired rounds of ammunition, and A-10 airplanes dropped 500-pound bombs on targets while soldiers on the ground move into positions during a training exercise at Camp Grayling. And still to this day, every year, Operation Northern Strike happens, and they actually land planes on highways. So they're practicing warfare here in America. More than 3,000 soldiers and airmen have been taking part of Operation Northern Strike, a 2-week-long training exercise, which wraps up today. In terms of level of complexity, this is about as complex an operation you can plan and execute, says Major General Greg Vadnais, the head of Michigan's National Guard. This is PhD level work being done here today. Now, I don't know if this article will say it, but it was 4 years in the making. So from 2011, allegedly, to 2015, they were trying to figure out how to get this training up and running. I mean, that's just one little glimpse into how long they plan these things. Like, they are very meticulous, they being the people who love power and want to use it against us. Military leaders say the stepped-up training is important, especially for a shrinking military. Good morning, Zoltan the man. Ready to rock for sure. Thank you guys for joining me. Like usual, I have way too much information, so make sure you sign up to the Substack to get whatever I don't get to today, so you can check it out for yourself. The National Guard, probably by 2019, will be the smallest National Guard we've seen since 1955. Said, and our Army and Air Force are getting smaller, Grass says. So, but I highlighted this because it's like, why is he saying the National Guard probably by 2019? Because this is 2015 where he's saying this. So how does he know? Like, what is he thinking with this? What information, intel does he have? Why 2019? So we have to be ready even faster than we've been before. People who live near Camp Grayling are used to sounds of war in their own backyards, but others in Michigan also got a taste of urban warfare training. The U.S. Army conducted more secretive exercises in June in several other Michigan cities, rattling windows and nerves in Flint when explosions rang out without prior warning. And a helicopter blew bricks off a building in Port Huron, damaging the awning below. Michigan's not alone. Many parts of the U.S. are seeing military exercises this summer. Now, I have a small tidbit to share with you, just a theory that somebody had about the exercises happening down in the southern border during this time. And now, of course, it's almost 10 years later, and we haven't seen the fruits of the labor yet. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's like, we forget, and so that's what they bank on, right? That we're going to forget that this stuff took place. The biggest exercise, called Jade Helm 15, prompted some groups to claim something more sinister is afoot. Whether it's drones or the billions of bullets to the emergency FEMA camps, the preparations to attack the Tea Party and veterans, or the veterans' secretive death lists or don't treat lists, says Alex Jones, counting down a long list of threats he sees the federal government posing. People are coming up to me on the street saying, is it true martial law is coming? Have you heard about this? They don't even know where the story came from, Jones told the listeners. Okay, so take that with a grain of salt, right? Alex Jones, he does say some truth, but there's a lot of dramatization and stuff mixed in, and, who knows? Is he CIA? There's speculation. You can't trust really anybody, unfortunately. Not 100%, except for maybe, your neighbor, people that you actually know. But Alex Jones is a personality. In the court of law, he even gave that defense, as did Tucker Carlson, by the way. He said he's not a journalist. He's a personality, TV personality. So whatever that means, I know it could just be a defense or it could be the truth. That's why they are using it in their defense. Potok says radical right-wing groups have been warning about the federal government arresting patriotic Americans for decades. Now, in the last few years, it has come to my attention that groups like the Oath Keepers, but even more importantly, Fieldcraft Survival, that organization is attempting to help people get prepared, because it was a former special ops guy that saw in 2020 that there, no emergency vehicles were getting to places. Like, people needed to be self-reliant, and they weren't. And so he created this organization to help people be self-reliant in urban areas. And he got labeled by the CIA as a domestic terrorist organization. So why is it that somebody that's trying to help us be self-reliant is considered a domestic terrorist organization? These are questions we need to ask. So this, again, is almost 10 years later, but we're starting to see some things that are very sus. And personally, I think martial law is coming next year by design. So 2025 is going to be even crazier than this year, but let's just get through this year, right? I'm starting to think you're more CIA than Alex Jones. You're hilarious. Certainly not. Nope. You know what's funny, though, is when I was like 16, 17, I did think FBI or CIA, but once I joined the military, I learned. It took me 3 years out of 6. I was like, no way, government, way too corrupt. They care not about us. And they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on our training, and they don't give a crap about us. So anyway, I appreciate that sentiment, though. It's funny. Nope, this is not the right one. That was actually a link that was supposed to go to the Camp Grayling site, and then this is what comes up. So did they reuse the article or the link? I'm not really sure why that happened. Jade Helm 15 conspiracy theories. So the joint exercise is realistic military training known as Jade Helm 15, was sponsored by United States Special Operations Command and involved the U.S. Army Special Ops and Joint Special Ops Command, with other U.S. military units in multiple states, including Texas, Arizona, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, New Mexico, and Utah. Its stated purpose was to improve the Special Operations Force's capability as part of the national security strategy. It was coordinated and led from Eglin Air Force Base, which I tried to get to Eglin for the whole time that I was in the military. That would have been a really nice base to be at. So this shows the states that the Jade Helm was operating in. And as you can see, it's all the border states, and we're dealing right now with stuff going on at the border. So once again, who knows? The conspiracy theories seem to emanate from the map shown here from the U.S. Army Special Operations Command, which divides the region into 4 colors with 2 hostile states, 2 permissive states, 2 states leaning one way or the other, and California divided. So you can see here is with Texas, Utah is with Texas, California, Nevada are together, majority of California, and Colorado. I hope that you guys can see this. Sometimes that stuff's blurry. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. There we go. And Colorado's blue. Arizona is unknown. So they think friendly, that's why it's blue. But again, this was just an exercise. I'm just giving you the info. Psychological, let's see, Jim Shea of the Hartford Courant wrote that the conspiracy theories included a psychological operation aimed at getting people used to seeing military forces on the streets so that they do not realize when an invasion actually takes place. An international operation aimed to seize people's guns, recently closed Walmarts used by the military to stockpile supplies for Chinese troops who will be arriving to disarm Americans, and a military plan to round up political dissidents and remove key political figures who may be against the imposition of martial law. Other theories have described Jade Helm 15 as a secret plot to impose martial law, confiscate firearms, invade Texas, and institute total population control. I hate using Wikipedia at all, but again, it just attests to how hard it was to actually find any information about summarizing what Jade Helm 15 is all about. Like, they'll just say it's an exercise, and it actually has international players in this exercise. Maybe not then, but definitely now, because Jade Helm 15 isn't continuing, but Operation Northern Strike happens every year. Now, this is the only piece of information that I can find, and as you can see, it's like a screenshot. I don't even get the whole thing. So, Chinese UN peacekeeping forces are now training at Camp Grayling in Michigan, submitted by Dave Hodges on Thursday, September 2nd, 2021. At the behest of the United Nations, the Chinese military has crossed their northern border and are currently in Michigan. They are occupying an area called Camp Grayling. During the Jade, it says Hempt, but I'm assuming it's Helm, training exercises, putting down an American insurrection against a foreign takeover of our government was rehearsed extensively. One of the locations for these rehearsals was at Camp Grayling in Michigan. Before commenting more on this development, the previous involvement of UN forces at Camp Grayling, which occurred during the Jade Helm 15 and 16 training exercises. This event made it clear that UN forces will eventually be used against the United States citizens. Now, I have several here. I did. Hopefully I didn't delete them all. Yeah, I mean, this request URL not found. Here's where the original was allegedly housed. Access denied. Can't get to it. And it goes on. I think I had like 10 pulled up, and all of them were wiped. So I'm going to go through the Wayback Machine. I have not done that yet, but I plan on it. If I find anything else on this topic, I definitely will share with you guys because I think it's fascinating. You know, I've been looking into the UN peacekeeping missions, and China is heavily involved ever since 2015. So 2015 was a huge turning point in a lot of things. And this just says what JADE means, Joint Assessment and Detection of Events. So this is the World Health Organization's term. So what do they have to do with this mission? Lots of questions. Thought I'd just pose them to you because, you know, the more brains on a topic, the better. This is just a theory that I found from 9 years ago. Given that the exercise is taking place in the Southwest on the southern border, it could be preparation for Obama to erase the border and let a flood of Mexicans into the country. Well, he was wrong about Mexicans. Obviously, there's a flood coming through, but they're from all different areas. And the ones that are coming here to Michigan are Venezuela, Nigerian, I believe. I have a list, so we'll get to that. The mission of the troops would be to prevent U.S. citizens from interfering with the immigrants. The detention camps might be processing centers for the new residents, where they would be fed, get medical cards, ID cards, etc. Now, here we are 9 years later, and that's exactly what's happening. They get ID cards, they're getting money, they're getting housing allowance, they're getting more than veterans. In fact, VA resources are being shifted to the migrants, or illegal immigrants, really. I say migrants, and that's the United Nations term, so I'll try to continue to correct myself. But I thought that was, you know, pretty spot on 9 years ago. This is Vermont Folk Troth. Chinese UN forces are now training at Camp Grayling. Video unavailable, scrubbed. If these are pictures of Camp Grayling, but I have a video that shows way more. I didn't know that the facility was as large and had as many buildings and such. I've done some training like what I will show with you, but obviously not in a camp as large as Camp Grayling. It's very large. So this says Camp Grayling is a FEMA camp facility. I have not been able to find any proof for that. I'm just going to be crystal clear with you. I've seen a lot of people talking about this, but it's hard to find proof. Was the site of martial law training for the Michigan National Guard, which commenced on July 15, 2015 during the Jade 15 operation. This facility also houses hundreds of UN military vehicles. Some of the links are no longer active. The foreign troops training at the FEMA camp facility, Camp Grayling, are clearly UN troops who are undoubtedly training for the inevitable. Oh, you click this link, it won't go anywhere. So, again, scrubbed. Now, this was Alex Jones. Once again, what does HELM stand for? Homeland Eradication of Local Militants. Take it with a grain of salt. We don't know. There's no official UN or WHO documents or United States government documents that explains what HELM is the acronym for. But the government loves their acronyms. And so it is an acronym for something. But whether or not it's Homeland Eradication of Local Militants, I don't know. But the fact that the government is actually going after militias, trying to neuter them very, very recently, so that you can't train, you can have guns, but you can't be good with them. Just another thing that's plugged into this picture that I see. Good morning, Dragonfly. I was just up in Holton Lake riding out Polaris on the trails. Lucky you. Although I prefer it nice and warm inside reading my books. I appreciate people who love to go out and ride out in the cold weather. It's really sunny here today, thankfully. You don't get to see sun much in Michigan in the winter. Have to go out after this and maybe walk around, walk my dog. Try to get out in the cold. Okay, so China Daily. China-U.S. sign agreement to boost Army cooperation. This was June 15th of 2015. So right after that, in July, is when the Jade Helm and Operation Northern Strike started. So coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences, but the signing of the long-expected China-U.S. Army dialogue mechanism and the country's upcoming agreement, which you click on that, and of course, it's been scrubbed. It's not there anymore. On the air-to-air annex to the Code of Conduct on Military Encounters represent a leap forward in the relationship between the countries, analysts have said. However, they said the United States has to handle South China Sea issue properly to maintain the positive momentum, and a Chinese military leader has warned Washington to be cautious in its words and deeds on key issues involving China's territorial integrity. Central Military Commission Vice Chairman Fan Changlong, who has just completed a visit to the U.S., urged Washington to reduce its military activities both in the air and the waters of the South China Sea when meeting U.S. government and military leaders. So they're coming in, making demands. This is the first cooperation document to be signed by the two armies in recent years. Guan said the two sides may hold joint exercises based on the Code of Conduct to make sure its terms are implemented correctly. He added that despite some objections, the U.S. has invited China to attend the Rim of the Pacific exercise to be held next year. This is on patrol with China's first UN peacekeeping mission. Guess what year, guys? Guess what year? 2015. So we're going to check this out. It's only 2 minutes, but we're going to see what they have to say about the Chinese. I mean, really, how smart would that be? Oh, we can't invade you, but United Nations can. And there are several times where people have cried, even here, Flint, Michigan, people have cried to the United Nations. Chicago in 2019 for genocide, they called for the United Nations. Right now at the border, some people are calling for the United Nations. So it's ingenious. They have the largest peacekeeping force, the most active right now, China does, and they can invade without invading.
第一战斗小组由刘行到，由万辉到，带领机步2班，乘坐不战车1辆。
Yeah, they have way more than that now.
下面担负难民发放食物内围的警戒。前进。
The majority of soldiers are 20 to 30 years old. If you look at our border right now, there are a lot of Chinese that are between 20 and 30 years old.
They are always in Africa. They are coming here for business. They are not coming for protection. Now they come for protecting us, and we believe them.
And
Nothing
we believe
will come
them.
and harm us inside the camp when they are here.
Okay, here, here, here. 给他们提供帮助，我感觉很高兴。Very happy.
Now, I'm not saying that it's the Chinese portion of the United Nations Peacekeepers that are doing the assault, but I have read several articles about in Haiti, just the awful assault and how many children have been conceived because of that assault. So the United Nations, you know, they're like an invading army, unfortunately. The U.S. government agrees to a UN military takeover in the event of civil unrest on American soil. This is the theprepperdome.com. This came out in 2017, November of 2017. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, and, you know, again, you could take this with a grain of salt. It's just information. You can take it or throw it out. The UN takeover of America has already been rehearsed under the Obama administration. While some of you were busy watching CNN, this is what happened under your noses during the 2 years of Jade Helm drills. The Declaration of the United States government, as published on Fox News on October 29, 2017, is merely the legitimization of what has already happened. I need to look into this, and I will. Again, if I find any more information, I will share it with you. Published my warning over and over and over on this domain. First, my warnings were published in regard to a 2014 Central American illegal alien invasion, where DHS and the UN were commanding Border Patrol personnel to admit MS-13 into the interior of the United States. The operation was so bold that at one of its headquarters, I previously reported that Congressman Jim Bridenstine was refused entry into Fort Sill, where he went to investigate. I also reported that foreign troops were training at known FEMA camp locations such as Camp Grayling in Michigan. I published pictures of UN vehicles on American soil repeatedly as late as this fall. Fox News has invited itself to the party a little late because of 2016. Okay. Back in 2012, I saw videos of the United Nations Humvees and all types of vehicles, military vehicles that were on trains going towards Texas. And that was in 2012. So who knows, right? Why do they have these? This is another one. If it will allow me, I will try. There we go. 100 plus UN marked MRAPs deployed to Camp Grayling. FEMA camps prepare for civil unrest. Using secondary roads and traveling only at night, truckers from more than a dozen 4-truck convoys made their way from the west coast to Camp Grayling in Michigan's Lower Peninsula, where they unloaded their cargo. More than 100 mine-resistant, ambush-protected vehicles, MRAPs. This information was first brought to the attention of the Truth is Viral by a high-ranking officer in Michigan's law enforcement community. So, you know, the information is impeccable, allegedly. This officer introduced TTIV publisher and editor-in-chief Bobby Powell to a truck driver, a mutual friend with direct knowledge of these convoys. According to the truck driver interviewed in this episode of The Truth is Viral, the MRAPs delivered to Camp Grayling, long suspected of being a major FEMA camp, were clearly marked with UN insignia. So I will leave this in my Substack article, and you can watch it because it's like 40 minutes long. Interesting information here. First-hand reports like these are cool because they are believable, at least at first, and everything goes right. Okay. So you can check that out later. I have more information on China, but we are going to jump really quick to this. So the MFB backs petition to repeal state's energy sitting overreach. So here in Michigan, the state is trying to take the power of rezoning, seize local control. And this is a petition that they are trying to get on so that this is a petition to try to get it on the ballot so that we can take local control back. So we don't have to have solar and wind forced down our throat. So the voter-led petition seeking to repeal a law that allows the state to seize local control of large-scale wind and solar projects has received Michigan Farm Bureau support, which is great news to have someone big behind the push. Citizens for Local Choice, a broad coalition of bipartisan voters across the state, is leading the petition effort to reverse that, with plans to collect 356,958 valid signatures needed by May 29th for the proposal to be placed on the November 2024 election ballot. If enacted, this proposal will allow local units of government to continue determining their own standards regarding setback distance, structure height, and the amount of light and sound emitted by renewable energy facilities. It would also allow them to exercise final authority over the construction of energy facilities within their jurisdiction. So, if you see a petition from the Citizens for Local Choice, please consider signing so that we can have a vote. That's the main thing with all of these huge projects as well. Like, we just want a say. That's what America is supposed to be about. Allegedly. All right, so sorry, my information was a little messed up there, but we're going back to Northern Strike. This is only a 3-minute video. Let's check it out. Music, I don't know about that. I mean, how would you go up against this? You know, how many times Joe Biden has said twice now that the Second Amendment doesn't mean anything because you can't go up against tanks and, you know, F-15 AI fighter jets. .240 Bravo. That was a .240 Bravo. I've done this kind of training. Not in Camp Grayling, but down in Florida before my deployment. Okay. I thought there would be more to this. I should have watched it before. I thought that there would actually be some information. It's just video. Medical drone training. So this is what they're doing every year now, Operation Northern Strike. When you see helicopters every day flying across your sky, they're getting ready for something. Skip to this. Backing up. £30-pound weapon. And they always make the girl carry it in tech school. The girl carries. If there's any girl on the squad, you get the .240 Bravo. Which I get, right? You have to be able to keep up. I get it. I get it. So, martial law, Jade Helm's hostile in the United States. So, this is 4 minutes. Maybe this will give us a little bit more context.
The military is planning an unprecedented training exercise this summer called Operation Jade Helm 15 across 7 states. And with polls showing trust in the government near record lows, that exercise has some Americans feeling uneasy.
And this was all the way back, again, in 2015. So think about it now, how many people don't trust the government.
Jennifer Wishon brings us that story.
Have you heard of this military special operations command exercise called Jade Helm?
Speculation about why the military wants to train in American communities instead of military bases is fueling a growing number of theories across the internet and social media.
The government will take action when it thinks its authority is threatened.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has even asked his National Guard to monitor it. So what is Jade Helm 15? It's realistic military training taking place simultaneously in 7 states, from Southern California to Texas. Over 8 weeks, the nation's elite special forces will practice unconventional warfare by operating outside their normal support systems, adapting to new terrain, and working with civilians to gain their trust. When news of the operation broke, The phones inside Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert's office lit up.
At first, people were not sure what to think. Do we have to worry about martial law? Is our federal government coming in and going to practice imposing martial law on Texas?
A former Army captain, Gohmert says he understands the need for training.
It's coming.
Yet it bothers him that as part of the exercise, the military is labeling Texas, Utah, and Southern California as hostile.
This is actually taking areas of our home country, the United States, and saying Texas is hostile, Utah is hostile, Southern California is hostile, and we got to take it back from the hostiles. I find that incredibly offensive.
And he thinks it's no coincidence that the Jade Helm 15 map looks an awful lot like the 2012 political map. So-called hostile states are colored red. The suspicion surrounding Jade Helm 15 is fueled by the fact that a vast majority of Americans simply don't trust the government, a level of mistrust that has peaked under the Obama administration, driven by what many believe to be violations of the Constitution and civil liberties. This is what Americans understand war looks like, but Cheryl Chumley, author of Police State USA, says Jade Helm 15 is introducing a new type of warfare, the master of the human domain.
What's going to happen is the special operations soldiers are going to be dressed in civilian clothes, driving civilian vehicles, and they're going to be tasked with striking up rapport with the local citizens.
It's a new strategy to root out terrorists since locals notice odd behavior first. In Jade Helm, citizens are part of the exercise.
Watch out, because that guy that strikes up a conversation with you at the local 7-Eleven, is he a Jade Helm 15 participant? You know, it's a psychological warfare that it kind of messes with your mind a little bit.
White House spokesman Josh Earnest says special forces moving about communities will wear armbands.
I feel confident in expressing to you, without having a lot of detailed knowledge of the particular exercise, is that the civil liberties and constitutional rights of American citizens will be in no way affected by this.
I believe you.
Despite conspiracy theories, Congressman Gohmert isn't worried that the U.S. military is going to issue martial law, but he's not happy with the president.
When my own commander-in-chief, through his subordinates, is just fine with, for games purposes, declaring an enemy of two or more of your states, I've got a real problem with that. That is one of the most insensitive, just outrageous things that a military commander could do.
Chumley urges Americans to always stay vigilant when it comes to the government.
What I love most about America is that our rights come from God, not government. And I think we need to hold fast to that principle, because once that's gone, then you just open the doors to more and more government encroachments.
Jennifer Wishon, CBS.
They do. Exactly. You're right. And you have to, that's one of the reasons you have to have something outside of man, because they do. They come from God, not government. So if government tries to take them from you, they're wrong. We'll get to that in just a second. Sorry. We're going to actually go to Gotion, since we were talking about the Chinese coming in to Michigan. Let's talk about Gotion. It prepares for environmental reviews. This just came out on February 12th. Gotion Inc. is preparing to submit very comprehensive requests for local, state, and federal environmental permits to advance its $2.4 billion battery manufacturing project that we don't want. Gotion execs hope to break ground on the project later this year, or once necessary regulatory reviews are completed. The project promises 2,350 new jobs, but has sparked controversy since its first announcement in 2022. Including over its potential effects on the environment. Chuck Thelen, which real quick, I have a picture of Chuck Thelen that I want to show you. Oh, where did I put it? Chuck Thelen right here. And this is next to Li Zhen, who is the CEO of Gotion. And he is one of the richest men in the Anhui province over there in China. He has been an active member of the CCP. And there he is again, Chuck Thelen with his CEO, his boss. So this is the Chuck Thelen we're talking about here. Just so that we're all crystal clear. Chuck Thelen, Gotion's VP for North American operations, said in a recent interview that the company is assembling a very comprehensive permit application that should be completed around the end of March before undergoing a review process. According to Thelen, local permits are still needed from Mecosta County and the county drain commissioner related to the construction of 2 planned buildings. Additionally, air and water quality permits will be needed from both state and federal regulators, including EGLE and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, which the EPA abandoned East Palestine, Ohio. So do we trust the EPA? Do they care? Selectively. When they're supposed to care, they do. When they don't need to, they don't. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has also a say in the process. Ellen said, so based on the result of the permit process, as soon as that is done, we will break ground. I'm hoping optimistically that will be at the end of summer, but it could be early fall. So that means we need to keep vocalizing our opposition, try to get even louder as we get closer. And again, I think we can stop this. I've constantly said the environment, but the more I look into China, the more I will be talking about it, because it's definitely something to be concerned about. Again, with their activity in the United Nations, I'm concerned. In addition to criticism about Gotion's parent company's ties to Chinese Communist Party, other ongoing concerns have involved the project's potential effects on the environment. In 2023, a local opposition group threatened to sue the company over concerns involving the plant's potential effect on endangered species as well as groundwater, given the project's proximity to the Muskegon River. The facility will reportedly withdraw 715,000 gallons of groundwater per day. And I actually went on a Zoom meeting with people that are over in Southern California that do not want a lithium mining operation to come to their area, and they're Native American. And guess what? No one's listening to them either. And the reason they're concerned is how much water it will take to get the lithium out. Gotion plans to manufacture cathode and anode materials for the battery cells. Okay. EGLE spokesperson Hugh McDermott Jr. said the department's Water Resources Division staff has had a pre-application meeting with the company and reviewed a wetlands analysis done by a Gotion consultant. Wait, reviewed a wetlands analysis done by a Gotion consultant? So Gotion hired somebody to analyze the wetlands and you're just going to trust that analysis? Isn't that a conflict of interest? Or maybe I'm getting it wrong. To ensure that their analysis of the wetland areas and types are consistent with EGLE's understanding of the property. While McDermott said EGLE can't yet speculate on the nature of the permits until they've been submitted, EGLE's review and consideration will include a public comment period. So look out for that. Keep our ear to the ground for a public comment period. Until we are through public comment and review, EGLE will not have anything analytical to say about the proposed permits, McDermott said. We will, of course, be able to answer any questions about the process or technical aspects of the application that may be confusing to lay persons. To ensure the community is comfortable with the environmental permits, Thelen said Gotion also has been sharing information about the future plant's operations with the Muskegon River Watershed Assembly and Mecosta County Conservation District. Obviously, a lot of planning goes into the project of this size, and that includes working with our environmental organizations and regulatory bodies, Thelen said. Meanwhile, Thelen said Gotion has received more than 400 resumes for open positions. The company is working on job offers for 2 individuals with 4 other applicants approved and eyed for offers. So far, I have not heard anything about Mandarin Chinese being necessary for any positions at Gotion in Michigan. Now, in Illinois, there are positions that require Mandarin Chinese because there will be Chinese nationals at both plants, but they've been denied here in Gotion, Michigan. So we'll just have to wait and see. Gotion's progress comes after voters in Green Charter Township in November recalled all 5 members of the township board who petitioners claimed weren't listening to residents' opposition to the plant. Forging ahead, Gotion's Big Rapids project is moving forward as other large battery plants in Michigan scale back and face similar political scrutiny for their ties with the Chinese government. 2 U.S. House committees recently asked Biden admin to investigate Chinese companies that they say are involved in Ford Motor Company's planned EV battery plant in Marshall, according to the Reuters report. This comes after plans for the Ford project were scaled back in late 2023. As of November, the project is now expected to create 1,700 jobs, a 32% reduction. So why is that? Some people will say it's the strikes. Others say it's because of the very vocal opposition that's happening in Marshall and surrounding areas. And Shiawassee, too. Now they're getting a solar farm. It's like, people do not want this. We want regular farms that have cow farts, okay? We're okay with cow farts. Local opposition has emerged around the Marshall project, partly based on Ford's partnership with Cattle, a supplier in China that will supply technology to be used at the plant. The American thing to do is ask questions, Stellan said when asked about concerns surfacing around the Gotion plant. That's funny, because in this next article, he basically says that we're a bunch of extremists. As for the Big Rapids plant, Stellan said the project timeline is still on track based on economic development contracts with the state. Phase 1 of the project calls for the first. We're still on, but I just read too that they're actually behind by a year. So he's a liar. That's known. We've caught him. The community, the Green Charter Township community, the locals here have caught him lying several times. One in particular on video. So can't trust them, of course. He has a lot of money involved. I'm sure that he gets a big fat bonus when this goes through. Phase 1 of this project calls for the first facility to start producing materials by 2026, with a second facility to follow. Both plants will be operational by 2031, with full production slated for 2033. Gray Wolf, thank you for joining. And Charlotte Cosmic, have to say, Norton versus Shelby, 118 U.S. 425 from 1886. This is Delegated Authority of U.S. Citizen, U.S. Constitution, State, Local Charter. We have to stop this commie. Yes, unfortunately, communism or communitarianism, that's what I'm thinking it is. And I didn't make up the word or discover it myself. I did get it from Rosa Corey, who wrote the book Behind a Green Mask, UN Agenda 21. And she put forth the idea that this is actually authoritative communitarianism, which I want to discuss digital ID because they keep saying it's centralized decentralization. And that is what communitarianism is. That means central comes first, the community comes first, and then decentralization with the blockchain technology capabilities to each get us in our own block, but centralized. I want the opposite. I want decentralized centralization. So the individual comes first. The decentralization part comes first. And then we, in this, let's say, Newaygo County, we get a central planning stuff together, but it's decentralized. So again, individuals first. But digital IDs, I'm going to talk about that, I think, on Friday night. Yes, because tomorrow I'm talking about recomposting human bodies and cannibalism and how Idaho is actually coming up with some laws. But that's tomorrow. Sorry. So we still expect this year we'll sell more EVs than last year, but that growth rate feels like it's decelerating, said Mike Wall, Executive Director of Automotive Analysis at S&P Global Mobility in Grand Rapids. We're seeing that sort of overarching growth, maybe just not as robust as what was hoped for, or maybe planned for by automakers. And more importantly, when you start layering in sheer number of models that are launching. Right. So they're not going to say it's because of the local pushback, which makes me think it is because of local pushback. Despite the forecast for the industry, Stellan is optimistic because Gotion's relatively diversified portfolio. We've certainly seen the industry make decisions based on consumer demands, Stellan said, noting that 40% of Gotion's business is for energy storage. We're not just tied to the EV industry. Yeah, no, there's a lot more going on with Gotion than just EV. battery parts. Overall, he is eager for the Big Rapids project to move forward. We're very excited about creating 2,300 good-paying jobs that will not be there by 2031. It will be automated. Thelen said, I am laser-focused on making this project happen. Laser-focused. They keep using laser-focused. Chinese EV battery maker Gotion starts cutting trees for $2.4 billion factory. Oh, no. I was only allowed to read it once. Dang it. I will try to find it, guys, and have it up on my Substack. I apologize. Behind a paywall. Dem-backed Chinese firm raising trees in Michigan to make way for EV plant. Chinese green energy firm backed by Michigan State's government is tearing down trees to make way for a proposed EV battery plant designed to help state meet its climate goals. Gotion Inc., whose parent company is Hefei, China-based Gotion High-Tech, said it has initiated its tree cutting process this week to make way for its controversial EV project in Mecosta County, Michigan, which has received support from Democrats and climate activists, but opposition from Republicans and national security experts. This is Fox News, guys, and that is a lie. That is, we could say a half-truth, but I just will call it a lie. Received support from Democrats and climate activists. I would say that the people over in IDRA are considered climate activists, and they're against it. So define climate activists. Now, maybe you're just talking about people who are for UN Agenda 2030, but if you know anything about the green industry, you know it ain't green, and so you're not a real climate activist, you are a political climate activist. Somebody that really cares about our river, the second largest river in Michigan, being polluted. Those people don't want Gotion on that river, on the third largest aquifer in Michigan. The firm said the process is legal and pushed back against concerns raised by locals. It's unfortunate that some extremist groups have targeted Mecosta County area businesses that want to work with Gotion to grow and strengthen jobs in our region, said Chuck Thelen, Gotion's VP. Right here it is. A small minority of people continue to spread misinformation and manufacture lies about Gotion Inc., which invariably leads some residents to act out and make threats, he continued. Despite these attempts at intimidation, the legal selective cutting of trees will start on February 14th. So is it okay to ask questions, or are we just spreading misinformation and manufacturing lies? Gotion first unveiled its deployment plans in October. However, amid increasing opposition to the project over Gotion's ties to the Chinese Communist Party, the project has faced delays, even as the Whitmer admin has earmarked nearly $200 million in taxpayer funding for the development. Another reason. And then we're going to talk about NDAs here in a minute, because an article came out a couple days ago about how many of our politicians sign NDAs and how utterly wrong it is. While mass tree cutting to make way for construction was originally slated to occur late last year, the process was delayed until this week. So it was on time, but the process has been delayed. You see, he lies. Chuck Thelen is a liar. He just wants to get that money. Crane's Detroit Business reported earlier this week that one local logging business had been awarded the contract, but ultimately backed out over the sustained local opposition, saying they didn't want to be tied up in a bunch of gobbledygook. The opposition appears to have been spearheaded in part by Marjorie Steele, the founder of Economic Development Responsibility Alliance of Michigan. Well, they did back out, and then they decided maybe they got a bunch of money, and they decided to do it. So they are now actually going through with cutting trees. To date, Gotion has applied for no environmental permits through EGLE, no soil erosion permits through the county, and has presented no site plan to local or state agencies. Yet Gotion is preparing to log the site before the end of the month. Steele wrote to the local U.S. Environmental Protection Agency office last month. The environmental situation is about to come to a head, she continued. We, as representatives of local community, ask once more, urgently, that EPA Region 5's office take action on the federal oversight required for this development before violations occur. Right. It's a lot easier. They just violate and then pay the money. That's what they do. If you have the money, who cares about your stupid rules? I'll just pay the fine. In a statement with Fox News, Michigan Department of Environment and Great Lakes Eagle spokesman Jeff Johnston confirmed that Gotion has yet to file any permit applications with the agency regarding its project or tree cutting plans. However, he said that permits are only required if the work is to be done on wetlands. This week, Republican Michigan State Senator Jonathan Lindsay and Lana Theus demanded the Whitmer admin to halt funding for the project in light of concerns raised by Panetta and Pompeo. So there are people in several different fronts trying to stop this project. But again, we'll show you just, this is the Michigan-China Economic and Security Review Group that has these pictures. So I will have these up for you on the Substack article. Now, here is Pete Hoekstra with Donald Trump. This was in 2016, he said, 2016, and then this is this year. So they are on Trump's private jet right now discussing how to make money. They don't care about the grassroots movement. They just want to make money. And Trump doesn't care that he's called Patriot Act Pete Hoekstra. And there's only two options here. It's either that Trump is ignorant of what's really going on in Michigan, which I see a lot of comments saying he just doesn't know any better. Which, I'm sorry, if he doesn't, then how is he going to save America? That's my question. But there's the other side, is that he knows exactly what he's doing. And unfortunately, he's part of the club because this guy's establishment. So why is he, if he's supposed to be anti-establishment, why is he hiring establishment? These are just my questions. You can take them or leave them. I love you no matter what. Jumping around a bit. China using cyanide to destroy the Scarborough on purpose. This is what China does. So again, do we really want Gotion on our river? The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources revealed that Chinese fisherfolk have been using the deadly chemical compound cyanide to damage Bajau de Mason Lock. Completely wrong, I know. A body of water also known as the Scarborough Shoal. Spokesperson had this to say about the said traditional fishing grounds, an area claimed by the People's Republic of China, even if it's well within the West Philippine Sea. These Chinese fishermen use cyanide, said Bruguera in Filipino during a Saturday News Forum press conference held in Quezon City. They intentionally destroy Bajau de Mason Lock to prevent Filipino fishing boats to fish in the area. He estimated that the damages caused by the cyanide fishing could exceed P1 billion. However, BFAR has yet to conduct a formal study on the matter. The West Philippine Sea lies within 200 nautical miles, exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, a claim already backed by the Permanent Court of Arbitration way back in 2016. The Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson likewise said that China's latest action on Philippine waters could be seen not only as an attack on Philippine sovereignty, but also humanity. Torrella said the whole world could also be affected should they constantly and persistently practice cyanide fishing. Beijing in the past years have allegedly conducted various forms of harassment within the West Philippine Sea, including but not limited to utilizing water cannons, lasers, and the like against Filipinos. Thought that was interesting. Something to share. Here's another thing if it loads. So this is Zen Lee, the individual that was with Chuck Thelen. It says as of this year, January 31st of this year, he's worth $722 million. Now, I've heard he was a billionaire as well. Perhaps his money went down, or, he's got money somewhere that wasn't recorded. But if you look here, it has all his little connections to all the Chinese businesses. And if you know anything about how the CCP works, then you know that they're heavily involved in any business, whether it's in America, Europe, Russia, no matter where it's at. The CCP has their little hands in the homeland on these businesses. So, something to be aware of. China tipped to keep Mali's ties strictly economic as UN peacekeeping mission wraps up. I discussed this the other day. I think it was actually last Wednesday on my Rumble exclusive. So I'm not going to go over the whole thing, but we see more development projects and people-to-people relations, and the Chinese embassy in Mali posted about several education-related projects conducted in rural areas. So they are going out in rural areas and using economic development like Gotion to do their little military deeds. The pledge to bankroll Malian projects points to a key Chinese diplomatic approach to conflicts, preferring its long-standing policy of promoting economic development as a solution to most problems and avoiding direct intervention in complex conflicts. That's what they do. They don't go head-on. They use economic development to take over countries, areas, what have you. China seeks to avoid diplomatic entanglements with Western powers while protecting its economic and security interests. Except for UN peacekeeping operations, China did not engage in its own personnel in active warfare in Africa, as the United States and France were willing to do. So, U.S. and France are willing to go toe-to-toe. That's not how China works. That's basically why I wanted to highlight this article. China leads global efforts to realize UN Sustainable Development Goals for 2030. The UN adopted 2030 Sustainable Development Goals in 2015. It keeps going back to Obama. The Obama reign, United Nations, China, all 2015, getting together, making plans. And again, a decade is nothing for these plans. So by 2025, having them implemented, that's within their time frame. Let's see. As a member of the UN, China has in the past years made steady progress to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, right. They are creating, 2 every day coal plants, and yet they're making steady progress to achieving their goals. It's, again, very selective. China's central government integrated the Sustainable Development Goals into the country's national development policy, including the 14th five-year plan from 2021 to 2025. Again, they are actively in the United Nations, as is America and France. What are they doing? They're working together, and they're pretending that they're not. It has also set up an interagency coordination system and constantly released position papers and progress reports on the SDGs. As a matter of fact, China has made the fastest progress among developing countries on how to realize Sustainable Development Goals at an earlier date. For example, the country of 1.4 billion residents has achieved the poverty reduction goal of the Sustainable Development Goal 10 years before schedule. The per capita GDP in China is nearing $13,000 now. How can you verify that? You just have to trust the CCP. There exist some challenges, and even headwinds for the world has become increasingly complicated and fragmented due to Washington's reckless anti-globalization moves. So China's pro-globalization and working towards it. That's what it sounds like to me, right? According to the UN stats, more than 800 million people still have difficulty to feed themselves, while at least 350 million people need humanitarian assistance. Pastor Randy, have you ever heard of tactical civics? No, I have not. Sounds interesting, though. If you care to enlighten in the chat, I'm totally down. Otherwise, I will look into it. Chinese government believes the humankind today live in a global village, and real economic growth and better living standards can be achieved only when all countries get hand in hand, overcome the challenges before them, and try to achieve a relatively fast economic growth. For the purpose, China has established cooperative partnerships with dozens of regional and international organizations, financial institutions, and the NGOs. To promote the GDI, China organized many activities in cooperation with various parties, including the Anti-Corruption Forum of Global Development Cooperation, the Conference of China-South Asia Development Cooperation, the China-Indian Ocean Region Forum of Development and Cooperation, and the International Forum of Hybrid Rice Assistance and Global Food Security. The country also took the initiative to step up the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the BRICS New Development Bank. In total, more than 3,000 multinational and bilateral cooperation projects are adopted. Now, this BRICS is going to help collapse the banking system on purpose. The banking system wants a reset, just like everything else. So our current banking system and dollar collapses, and they bring in central bank digital currency. Again, that is the centralization, decentralization. And it's connected with digital ID, central bank digital currencies, the Neuralink from Tesla, all connected. So that'll be Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. China is taking an active part in bilateral and multilateral free trade agreements, such as the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. So you could see economic development. That's what they do. So that is why Gotion is coming 100 miles away from Camp Grayling. And they do have party education, get-togethers for the party being the CCP. So do we want that in our backyard? Of course not. The country is also implementing the G20's debt service suspension initiative, accounting for the largest number of suspended debt among all G20 member countries. In order to achieve all the targets set by UN Sustainable Development Goals, the world must be united and act together. New World Order, baby. China's down. As long as right now they're vying for position on who can be the top dog in the New World Order. First of all, there is no need to build a global consensus on sustainable development. This year marks the midterm evaluation of the SDGs. All countries should follow the UN's leadership and strengthen comprehensive coordination. The UN should play the leading role in reaching the SDGs by pushing forward global development governance. Citizen of the world. You have no rights as a citizen of the world. At least none by the government. God, of course, he's the one that really gives you the rights. Strengthening policy coordination, focusing on consistent and joint actions, which must say no to empty talk. At the time, North and South cooperation should be promoted. By adhering to the principle of common but differentiated responsibility, the world's major governments ought to expand multilateral cooperation, seek common ground by setting aside differences on development methods, rules, and standards in order to foster a new type of North-South relationship. Only through consistent cooperation and coordination could the world act to ramp up concerted efforts to realize all the targets set in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. China continues coal spree despite climate goals. This just came out, or is it August of 2023? And this last one that I just shared with you was from the Global Times in June of 2023. So what is it? Are they doing well with their goals, or are they not? The government has pledged to peak emissions by 2030 and approving new coal power plant projects at an equivalent of 2 plants every week. Okay, 2 plants a week. I heard that they have 650 plus in the works right now. And here in America, we're shutting down our coal plants, so that way it's nice and painful in the winter. Let's see. National Defense University Press. The United States, China, and the prospect of an inevitable war. So I'm not going to go through this. I will have it linked so that you can read it. But this basically says, just like in the book On Power, the history and its of course, I don't have it anywhere near me. It's natural history or what have you. But basically, the trap is every time China comes up with some new innovation, it's usually for war. America has to do the same. It's this constant vying for power where, yeah, Spartan, let's see. I'll just read a little bit. Ensnare China and the United States in a 21st century conflict, much as the rising power of Athens alarmed Sparta and made war inevitable. So that's the argument here, is that the rising power of China is alarming America and is making war inevitable between our two nations. Food for thought, use a little bit of philosophy, might be interesting for you. I think that might be all I have on China. And I'm going to get back over to the Michigan GOP really quick and then on to immigration. Just doing a quick double check. All right. Let's go. We'll do this really quick reminder. Michigan is an automatic voter registration state, and Lansing Democrats recently introduced legislation that would allow illegal immigrants to get a driver's license. A driver's license should be a privilege for those on the path to citizenship. Michigan voters deserve an explanation how the system will make the distinction and protect the right to vote for U.S. citizens. It's impossible. The government can't do anything efficiently, so there's no way that they're going to be able to make sure that the illegal immigrants aren't voting. But it's part of the plan. Now, one layer says it's for the blue so that they can get votes, but if you watch a couple of my videos that I've done the last few weeks, it's absolutely deeper than that. It is United Nations plan. They are using migrants to implement their sustainable development goals. In fact, they say it's required. So it's not really about votes because they have the system rigged already. This is about flooding our country with people that will go against American citizens for benefits, right? Michigan GOP, Michigan Republican Party. So this is from Karamo. This is the last thing after Trump said, Hoekstra is my man. Christina Karamo, you're nothing. He didn't even mention her, right? Last week was pivotal because a lot of information came to light that will impact the future of the Michigan Republican Party. I encourage each of you to consider the following. My administration has obtained more concrete evidence of the RNC leadership colluding with the political lynch mob to try and eliminate me as chairwoman. Pete Hoekstra and his Hoekster organization are, let me help myself out, and maybe you can see it as well. Oh, it won't let me zoom in. Okay. Just have to squint. Pete Hoekstra and his Hoekster organization are fraudulently soliciting funds while impersonating the Michigan GOP. According to their bogus website, all funds they receive are being deposited into the Michigan GOP Red PAC account. The majority of the Michigan GOP State Committee members and precinct delegates have made it clear that they support me as chairwoman, and they will not be deterred by the sinister schemes of Pete Hoekstra and his fellow Hoeksters. The Michigan Republican Party is a legal entity. Prominent individuals and organizations other than Michigan Republican Party State Central Committee proclaiming Pete as the chair have no legal standing. So what she's saying here, it doesn't matter that the RNC is saying what they're saying because they're backing Hoekstra as well, but that doesn't matter. There's no legal standing there. He cannot legally conduct business, which includes a convention on behalf of the Michigan Republican Party. As a legal Michigan GOP chairperson, only I can do that. Pete Hoekstra is claiming that he is going to hold a separate convention. The fact is, he is wrong. His claim that he has the legal authority to do so is not only unethical, but it also creates mass confusion amongst the GOP county chairs and precinct delegates. His audacity shows a complete lack of respect for the dedicated Republicans who worked hard to plan and organize the March 2nd Michigan GOP District Convention at Huntington Place. The calls to convention have gone out, stating it would be held in Detroit, and the convention venue has already been paid for. As a duly elected and twice reaffirmed chairwoman of the Michigan GOP, I urge Hoekstra to join me at the 2024 Michigan GOP District Convention in Detroit on March 2nd, 2024. This is an excellent opportunity for us to convene in the same room, stand in front of approximately 2,000 delegates, and end this divide with a vote. From that point, we should both agree to respect the result of the vote and put an end to the manufactured dispute once and for all. By uniting the party via the outcome of this legitimate vote, we can do the following: be victorious in 2024, strengthen our ability to serve we the people, not big donors like DeVos and Weiser, protect Michiganders from the pernicious agendas of Democrats. If we consider the alternative, no one who emerges from two conventions will enjoy even a veneer of unity, and Michigan Republicans will know there is still a huge divide within the party. This is important because our state will play a critical role in deciding who will win the 2024 presidential election. Bottom line is, let the delegates decide. This is the only possible way to move forward at this point. In Liberty, Christina Karamo. I hope that Hoekstra shows up. She called him out, and she's willing to accept whatever vote occurs on March 2nd. So let's hope that Hoekstra will show up and the delegates vote for who the people want them to vote for, not where the money is. We can't bend the knee to money. We lose. Every time we do that, we the people lose, not necessarily Republicans, Democrats. I'm talking about us, little guys who don't have money, right? You should listen to us because you're supposed to work for us. Doesn't matter that we can't pay you like DeVos, which, by the way, did you know that's Dutch for the fox? I didn't know that. I thought that was ironic. Growth Officer, Michigan, a leaky bucket. So a lot of this is all free online on Michigan Capital Confidential, so check it out. But this is why I wanted to say, without international migration, Southeast Michigan's population would have been declining in every year. So that's the key here. Here is the article. We're going to get into the immigration stuff now. I just got to find it. Here we are. Gretchen Whitmer looking for Michigan residents to house migrants. Oh, so even Kyle Olson of the Midwesterner is calling them migrants. Number of illegals coming into state unknown. ABC 12 reports Whitmer's admin is seeking volunteers to do several tasks, including meeting the person or family at the airport, helping find housing, enroll children in school, and help with finding employment for adults. This is Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer's Office of Global Michigan. They're looking for resident volunteers to house illegal aliens in their homes and integrate them into society. The Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Development says residents who participate must make a 90-day commitment to apparently meet every migrant need. Programs like the Welcome Corps advance the Office of Global Michigan's mission to make Michigan the home for opportunity for our immigrant, refugee, and ethnic communities. Poppy Hernandez, Global Michigan Director and Michigan's Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer, said in a statement, wow, so Global Michigan Director and Michigan's Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer. So yeah, all kinds of global stuff going on with Poppy Hernandez. Expanded refugee settlement pathways empower more Michiganders to support our state's growing refugee population and build a more welcoming and inclusive Michigan for all. Potential migrant candidates are of Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelan nationality, according to the Whitmer Agency. So there you are. They're not coming from Mexico. They're coming from all these other locations. In a similar program, a Boston woman took in a Haitian family and scored her own personal chef in the deal. I don't know if you guys saw this.
She felt bad, as any mother would. Now things are looking much brighter as they've been welcomed into Lisa Hillenbrand's Brookline apartment.
Tu niña es muy alegre ahora.
Sí, muy alegre. Cuando se levanta en la mañana, se dice, ay, Lisa.
Oh. She says her daughter is very happy.
Yeah.
When she wakes up in the morning, she says, hi, Lisa, and everyone starts the day smiling.
It's a delight, and it's really fun having them. What I realized is there's so much prejudice against refugees, mostly because people don't know them.
Lisa says she feels like she has her own personal chef, as Wildande loves cooking.
¿Te gusta la ocupación?
Now, a lot of right-wing commentators, like Salty Cracker, are saying, this is like slavery is back. And I'm not going to go that far. You let me know what you think, but it is a little weird that she's happy. She's got her own personal chef, and it's not a good look, in my opinion. And comments here, they will kill you. That's definitely possible with some of them. I mean, I would be worried. Again, have Whitmer. She's got 2 mansions. Fill up her mansions and see how that goes. And then talk to, other people about it, right? Regular citizens. But yeah, this is weird to me.
In fact, her goal is to open up her own restaurant. The couple has their work permits and they've been taking English classes.
Yo cualquier trabajo va a hacer para guardar mi dinero para hacer mi futuro.
They're open to work anywhere to save money for their future. In the meantime, they're enjoying their time with Lisa, their new friend for life. and their daughter's new grandmother.
They are hardworking. They want to learn. They want to be successful. And I feel great helping, and I get to understand the refugee crisis from the inside.
Lisa says she's so impressed by the number of people she's met right here at Brookline Town Hall meetings who've been stepping up and hosting families. She's hopeful more will do the same.
So you can see this is a thing that's going on in several locations. It's like silent takeover of America, right? Lisa Hillenbrand welcomed her family into an apartment, and they do chores and cooking. Hardworking, they want to learn, they want to be successful, and I feel great helping them, and I get to understand the refugee crisis. Okay, as for Michigan, the Office of Global Michigan says residents can donate to a charity called the Children's Foundation to help influx of migrants coming to the state. It is unclear how many migrants are being located in Michigan, but one Whitmer appointee recently said if it wasn't for illegals, the state population would be shrinking. Now, again, I will say it almost every time I talk about the leaky bucket here in Michigan. It's pretty simple. You lower taxes, people will come. Young people want to keep the majority of their money. They don't want to give it to the government and the government waste it by sending it to other countries. So it's pretty simple stuff. That's why Axe Michigan Tax, please sign wherever is close to you in your county, find a location and sign, just to have it put on the ballot, right? If we can get rid of Michigan property tax, businesses would flock here. You don't need to bribe them with our tax dollars. Gretchen Whitmer looking, I already read that, sorry, this one. So Governor Whitmer sits down with News Channel 3 to explain affordable housing initiative. In the comment here, Whitmer stated a portion of the funds for this are federal. When asked if the taxpayers would pay the balance, she said no, it's in the budget. Where does she think the $80 billion budget comes from? She's asking for the largest budget in Michigan history to help support the largest government in Michigan history. The budget needs to be voted down. Great comment. Let's see.
Right now, people
3
are
minutes, all
gathering
right.
outside City Hall in Kalamazoo. They're demanding city leaders focus on affordable housing.
Okay. That doesn't go full screen. All right.
It remains a pressing issue in West Michigan and all around the state. Our Autumn Pitcher is live at City Hall as well. And Autumn, you also talked with Governor Whitmer today, who told you she has a plan to address affordable housing issues in our state.
Yes, Andy and Jessica, the governor is planning on building 10,000 housing units across the state this year. Now, you can see several Kalamazoo residents have been gathering right outside City Hall, really demanding for more affordable housing because of this huge housing crisis. I want to step aside to give you a live look. You can see them chanting, lined outside at City Hall here. Several different signs that they've created saying rent is too high. ARPA funds are for the people before profit, fund housing, not festivals. Really, all these just to demand more affordable housing. What they really want is for city officials to use the rest of their ARPA funding to go towards affordable housing to address what they're calling a housing crisis in Kalamazoo. They've been standing out here for about an hour now. You can still hear them chanting here.
Okay, so yeah, we have a lot of great comments over on Rumble. The Mighty Human Z, Automation Alley. I live in Oakland County. We're screwing the rest of the state. Bribe with taxes is a form of control. They can't give up on that lever. You're absolutely right. When you take in illegals, your taxes will go up. Yeah, and one of the main things here is in the UN report is that there's like $1.4 trillion worth of money through migration by 2050. So like it's beneficial in so many ways for big government to move people around like it's some big chessboard, and that they're forcing different cultures together. They don't care. They, deal with it. Shut up and deal with it. That's how everything has been going. Gotion, shut up and deal with it. Affordable housing for illegals. Yeah, you're right. It is. This whole crash with the real estate, commercial real estate. by design. The Great Reset, they shut down all these businesses, they destroyed businesses, they made us get used to working from home and liking it, and now the commercial real estate market is collapsing, and the government is the one buying it all up or taking it, whatever they're going to do, and they're going to transform it into housing to house, illegals. And hopefully I'll play this for just a second, and then I'm going to find the article about the VA benefits being given to the illegals.
City has over $1 million in ARPA funds they have to designate by the end of this year. Michiganders are feeling the pinch in their pocketbooks, as the majority are living paycheck to paycheck, according to the Michigan State Housing Development Authority. It's no secret that Michiganders are struggling to find affordable housing, and we know that you brought this up at the State of the State, that there needs to be more. How do you plan on achieving this?
We have been focused on building out affordable housing all across the state. This is not unique to Grand Rapids or Traverse City or Detroit or Marquette. It's everywhere that we need to build affordable housing.
The governor telling me the plan is to build or rehabilitate 10,000 housing units across the state.
Half of our housing stock is over 50 years old in the state. And so we've dedicated $1.4 billion to affordable housing. We're trying to move as quickly as we can, working with developers and communities to make sure that they've got the tools and resources to meet their unique needs.
Mishta helping to make the vision a reality.
Her challenge to Mishta of creating 10,000 new housing units over 2024 is a challenge. I think we're up for meeting that challenge.
The majority of the funds for this massive project will come from the federal government, the governor not detailing where she's getting the rest. Is this something that taxpayers will have to cover?
No, there are no new, resources needed. We're able to do this within the budget that we are projecting right now.
How much?
That's hilarious, because she's talking about getting rid of gas tax and doing a road use mileage tax, so that way they can get the electric vehicle owners to pay taxes, but also to punish those that live in the rural areas, and they'll have to pay more, obviously. If you drive into the city to work, you will have to pay more taxes. So, she says there ain't going to be any. Of course, all of this is taxpayer dollars, because the government doesn't make any money. It just steals it from us. So
will those homes cost a future buyer?
It's so hard to answer your question. It depends on what the apparatus looks like for building it.
According to Mishta, since 2010, Michigan home costs have shot up 40%, while wages have only slowly increased to 14%. Whitmer says a proposal in her 2025-2026 state budget, giving every high school graduate the opportunity to learn an associate degree at a community college tuition-free, will help bridge the gap.
By taking that financial barrier away, giving people this opportunity, they'll earn these skills, they'll earn a higher paycheck, and that's a great way that we can help address that need.
Yeah, so here's one. I didn't find the original one. That's somewhere in these 30 tabs that I have, but VA ripped for helping pay migrant treatment as over 400,000 veterans and their families wait. Department of Veteran Affairs is facing blowback for helping pay out millions of dollars to medical providers who treat illegal immigrants while they are in federal custody. You can't go to the local dentist here and use VA benefits because the government wasn't paying their bills. Nobody around here will take Medicare or VA because the government doesn't pay their bills to them for us military folk. So, or us veterans, So now they're paying out millions of dollars to medical providers to treat illegal immigrants while they are in federal custody, while a backlog of hundreds of thousands of claims from veterans grow, right? Again, though, veterans were trained by the military or by our government, and they know how our government works, and they could be deemed a threat compared to a migrant who just wants to get the benefits that they were promised. So they will do whatever they are told to do. They'll follow orders, whereas a veteran knows, you don't have to follow an unlawful order. Or, most, not all. There are some people that will follow unlawful orders. Doesn't matter if they're civilian or military or veterans or any of it. But in a fiscal year 2022, which ended September 30th of that year, FSC processed 161,538 such claims, with the ICE Health Services Corps paying out an average of $584, total of $94 million in taxpayer money, according to July 2023 Department of Homeland Security report on healthcare costs for non-citizens in detention. So it's not surprising. Military is always last. Veterans are always last. That's what it seems anyway. Let's see, what else do we have on the migration? Oh, you know, they say that about home costs. And again, I have it somewhere here. If I lose it, it'll be in the Substack. But home costs are up because of all of the regulations for making your home sustainable. So that cost goes onto the person trying to buy a house. Yeah. If I find it in this mess, I'll get to it. So GOP reps urge haste on Line 5 tunnel environmental impact study. Excuse me. This was the 13th of February. So for that pipeline that they're trying to shut down, they want an environmental impact study. Will they get it? I'm not sure. We don't get one for Gotion until the last minute after we sell the land to them. A group of 35 Michigan Republicans are urging the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to speed up its review on the environmental impact for Enbridge's proposed tunnel to replace Line 5. Excuse me. I need something to drink. A letter seeking. I can't. It won't clear. Let me do something. Hold on. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. A letter seeking to fast-track the review was penned by State Rep Dave Preston and co-signed by several lawmakers from West Michigan, including State Reps Post-Smithis from Rockford, someone from Coopersville, and from Alto. The $500 million plan was approved by the Michigan Public Service Commission in December, but federal law dictates that construction cannot start until the U.S. ACE can confirm that the project will not significantly affect the quality of the human environment. So, will they allow this pipeline to go through? Hopefully they do. I mean, obviously there are issues that can occur with a pipeline in the water, but we need energy in order to maintain life. So we need that pipeline. And do we not have, after all this time, 100 years of working with this type of energy, we don't have a way to do it safely and effectively? You know, the green industry is all emerging market. It's all brand new stuff. So we should have solutions to the problems that occurred, you know, when the market was brand new 100 years ago. Previous reports stated a ruling from the U.S. ACE that could take until 2026. Oof. A tunnel beneath the Straits of Mackinac is the optimal solution to safeguard the Great Lakes while ensuring vital energy products are continuously provided to residents in Upper and Lower Michigan, as well as communities nationwide. Given that Line 5 serves over half of Michigan's propane customers, its role is pivotal in ensuring propane affordability, and availability. Documents from a federal lawsuit seem to dispute those claims, including statements from Enbridge's own scientists who estimated the prices of gasoline and propane would see no noticeable increase. How? With supply and demand, the natural law, right? If supply goes down and demand stays the same, then prices go up. It's pretty simple stuff. Sorry. Pretty simple stuff. An Enbridge spokesperson accused critics of cherry-picking parts of the analysis and presenting that data without context. Line 5 has been a top issue for environmentalists across the Midwest who believe the pipeline is too great a threat to the Great Lakes and that Enbridge should be forced to reroute its pipeline instead of allowing it to rebuild in the Straits of Mackinac. There have been studies for years that show we do not need Line 5, said Sean McBreedy. Okay, whatever. The Legislative and Policy Director for Clean Water Action. Enbridge needs Line 5 to keep their profits flowing, but Michigan doesn't need Line 5. The region doesn't need Line 5, and not even Canada needs Line 5. Again, supply and demand. I mean, I read an article just the other day on the stream about how you can't rely on your neighbors anymore because they don't have energy. They're all switching over as well. So a lot of problems happened in Texas because of that, and that's one of them that's included. The letter focused on previous statements by U.S. ACE that declares it a neutral party in the fight over Line 5, including past declarations that other concerns pertaining to the Line 5 pipeline were deemed outside the purview of EIS, and that the Corps does not have authority over the operation of Line 5 or continued operation of Line 5. 2016 study out of University of Michigan ran simulations of how a major leak in the Straits of Mackinac would impact the Great Lakes. The study ran 840 simulations of a leak of 25,000 barrels of fuel. Researchers estimate up to 720 miles of shoreline would be damaged and cost billions in cleanup, not factoring in revenue lost in the shipping, fishing, and tourism industries. Right, it would obviously be terrible, but who would attack the pipeline? I mean, who attacked the one over there by Germany? Oh, here it is. Revealed, Biden admin diverts veteran affairs resources to illegal immigrants. Savannah Hernandez. If you haven't seen her, I think she does excellent work. We'll give her 29 seconds really quick.
Happy that journalists from around the world have come to this place and come to expose what is really going on here, because again, remote location, so you can't protest. So it really is up to journalists and up to organizations like Turning Point USA to bring journalists to this area so we can actually ask the hard questions and hold these people accountable. So again, my main takeaway is that everything that they are pushing is an anti-human agenda, and we really need to be awake to this and aware of what is really happening.
Yes. I'm glad she says it. I mean, it is a spiritual war and a material war. It's a war of the ages. And the other side, the side that believes in the limits to growth, they are anti-human. And it's just clear in every take that they give. All right, let's see here. Oh, this is just showing the mansion in Lansing was renovated during the early 2000s, and it contains 10,300 square foot, 5 bedrooms, and 4 baths. It also now has a $1 million EV charging station driveway thing that Whitmer just put in with our tax dollars. So it's renovated for immigrants, right? Why not? Let's put the illegal immigrants over there. Michigan lawmakers' gag orders on tax deals blasted as culture of secrecy. An effort in Michigan to reform the use of non-disclosure agreements and taxpayer-subsidized economic development projects has some unlikely allies, lawmakers who sign the deals themselves. I didn't gain anything from having signed one except learning how broken the process is, says Senator Mallory McMorrow, a Democrat from Royal Oak, who inked a confidentiality agreement last spring, but is now proposing desperately needed guardrails as chair of the Economic and Community Development Committee. 44 Michigan lawmakers have signed 5-year confidentiality agreements with the MEDC since 2021. 5 years, that's 2026. That's after this big event that they have planned for 2025. Whatever that big event or a series of very large events. Could it be civil war, UN invasion? I'm not going to get into the last one, but 2025 is not looking good. A lot of plans are completed by 2025 for these globalists. So it's got me worried for next year. Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed bipartisan bills to create the Strategic Outreach and Attraction Reserve Fund in 2021. Includes 32 out of the 146 current state lawmakers, according to records obtained by Bridge, Michigan, through a Freedom of Information Act request. Bridge requested the documents in October, but the process was slowed by delays from the MEDC, the state's primary economic development arm. While some argue the confidentiality deals are necessary to lure job creators, intent on keeping plans under wraps, critics contend they're inappropriate for government officials asked to fund and approve lucrative tax incentives. Right. Public-private partnerships. You're supposed to be working for us. Instead, you care more about money and you're working with the corporations. It's just straight up fascism. You've just pledged to keep your constituents in the dark, not truthfully answer questions in the news media, and to have secrets that you can't or won't share with your colleagues, said Rich Studley, a former CEO of Michigan Chamber of Commerce, who in 2022 led a ballot initiative that will soon require lawmakers to disclose their personal finances. Right. Michigan voters want more transparency, more accountability, and what politicians in Lansing are doing is just the opposite. Culture of secrecy. Records show Whitmer and her full executive office team are subject to a confidentiality agreement signed in 2019, right before the Great Reset really began, right before the COVID lockdowns and everything that our tyrannical governor did. I wonder what information she got in that NDA, in that disclosure. And again, I keep bringing it up, but Wuhan, China, October 18th of 2019 was the military war games where Trump went and talked to Xi Jinping in Wuhan, China with all the other leaders, world leaders that were at the military war games. It was like, to me, I'm thinking about a football game. They all get together, they have a plan, they have a play that they're about to commence, and they're ready, break, and they go out, and 2020 happened. But hey, that's just my imagination. I do read a lot of books. Records show Whitmer and her team signed in 2019 and subsequently amended to cover more than 20 potential developments, many referenced only by code names like Project Copper, Zany Bread, Peregrine Falcon, Elephant, which Project Elephant was Gotion, and Electra. Whitmer has defended the decision, telling reporters there's a lot of proprietary information that is shared as states are vying for major economic development projects that include massive investments and jobs. How do we know that it was just economic development NDAs? That's the problem with NDAs. Michigan has landed some of the developments like Project Zany Bread, a Lansing area EV battery plant that GM and South Korea battery maker LG Energy Solutions are building with the help of $666 million taxpayer dollars. The state missed out on others like Project Copper, a semiconductor manufacturing campus proposed for mid-Michigan. That's where Gotion is now. That's what they say. It's mid-Michigan. That spawned several NDAs, including confidentiality deals signed by Alyssa Slotkin and former U.S. Rep. Peter Meyer. Micron Technology of Idaho chose to build in New York despite Michigan's massive $27 billion incentive offer. Hey, here's a bribe of $27 billion. I can't even imagine a million, let alone 27 billion. And that's our money, guys. They were signed by some of the most powerful officials in the state legislature under both Democratic and Republican control. It's a uniparty. Senator Majority Leader Winnie Brinks, House Speaker Joe Tate, House Minority Leader Matt Hall, and former Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey and former House Speaker Jason Wentworth. Tricky balance. While lawmakers consider NDA reforms, one of Michigan's largest employers has already warned them not to go too far. If there's not confidentiality to protect proprietary information, we will not come in and have those discussions, GM lobbyist Brian O'Connell said in committee testimony last fall. If there are leaks in the process, it jeopardizes a project and we just simply walk away. That's a threat. That's a threat. If it's not confidentiality under a confidentiality report, we will not come and have those discussions. Well, screw you, GM. Like who is in charge here? Is it GM and these corporations? Or is it we the people? Who's in charge of our government? I know what it's supposed to be, but I know what it actually is. And they don't, it's contradictory. GM issued that warning as the legislature began to debate a potential overhaul of the SOAR program, which Whitmer created with former GOP legislative leaders in 2021 to lure critical industries to the state and fund site preparation. As part of the ongoing debate, Senate Democrats floated a possible amendment that would limit which state officials could sign non-disclosure agreements rather than prohibiting them at all, as GM has warned against. Again, screw GM. You don't want to work with us? Bye. You want it to be secretive? Like, and that's how everybody should be. That's the thing, though. We all need to take away our consent. Same thing with sports. If you're a female in a sport, do not play against a male. You're giving your consent by playing. So don't do it. I know that it's tough. You want to play your sport, but just recently it came out that 3 girls were injured because of a boy pretending to be a girl playing on the other team. They had to forfeit. The team with all the injuries had to forfeit. It's like, what world are we living in? How is this compassion? Anyway, that's a topic for a different day, but we need to stop consenting. It's a tricky balance to strike. Let's see. Those 2 lawmakers, McMorrow, the Senate Business Committee chair, suggested restricting NDAs to 2 lawmakers who would be given non-voting seats on the Michigan Strategic Fund Board, which approves SOAR incentives before they reach the legislator. Just another proof that the Michigan Strategic Fund Board and the MEDC are way too powerful. Let's see, more and more legislators, even those who have signed in the past, are looking for and saying, I don't know that there's an upside to doing it, McMorrow said, so I'd rather not because it erodes trust with my constituents. So some actually care, some pretend to care. Most of them, it doesn't seem that they do care at all. I really wish I could find that article on the building codes. I'm going to look really quick one more time to see if I can find it, because I think it's really important to understand. And this was a company that creates, I think, modular homes. They're not called trailers anymore. They're called modulars. And they were saying that these new regulations, they need to put sprinkler systems into the modular, which makes the house unaffordable. And so all these regulations that are over the top, all for sustainable development, they are causing issues. They're causing, well, depends on what you mean. They're causing it to be more difficult for people to own a home. And that is an issue for us. Here we are. I found it. But it's not an issue for the United Nations, who doesn't want private property and has infiltrated our government with their Agenda 2030. Proposed changes to building codes likely to cause costs of new homes to skyrocket. The state's licensing department is proposing a new building code for home builders. One company believes this will cause prices to skyrocket even more. Housing crisis in West Michigan continues to impact even working class families who can barely afford to pay rent or even think about the idea of buying a new home. The state's licensing department is proposing a new building code for home builders. One company believes this will cause prices to skyrocket even more, placing people out of affordable housing. Right. Affordable housing that's private. You're going to go into government affordable housing. That way they can have facial recognition and you don't have any rights because you live in government housing. So you don't get a gun. You don't get your Second Amendment rights. You don't get Fourth Amendment rights, which we don't have because of the Patriot Act anyway. You don't get First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, if you live in the government housing. None of us like to buy something that is garbage or costs us more than what it is. And that's what some of these codes are doing. Sable Homes, President John Bitely said. Sable Homes, right? They build regular homes. I'm sorry, it's not even modulars. Rockford-based Sable Homes has been building homes since 1995 and has seen their share of changes to the housing market in West Michigan. Proposed changes to building codes could require companies like Sable Homes to install commercial-grade sprinkler systems to prevent fires. The upgrade will be costly. Well, yeah, you need that, right? Because if you have an EV battery somewhere in your house being charged, it might start on fire. So the upgrade will be a costly project that John Bitely says a simple smoke detector could replace. Bitely is concerned the proposed coding changes could make it nearly impossible for people to even think about buying a home. Exactly what they want. This is how they squeeze, right? They don't just come out right and say, you're not going to own a home, you're not going to have a private vehicle anymore. They're going to make it impossible for you to do so through regulation. On one hand, we're recognizing we have a housing shortage. We're recognizing that affordability is a problem, and we're willing to spend money for it. But then we turn around and take all of it back, or even more of it back, with this new code changes that they're trying to implement, Bitely said. Bitely adds that mandated changes to building codes will make home buying process more expensive by tens of thousands of dollars. The solution to the problem, at best, we should have a moratorium of these codes. These homes that we're building right now are really good. Home builders will have to adhere to a proposed building code changes, and there's no backing out of it. For renters who may have been saving for a down payment towards the purchase of a home, they will have to reconsider a less expensive home or continue saving just to keep up with skyrocketing costs of homes, which will likely continue to rise due to the housing market and now with building codes having impact. It's likely to slow down no time soon. The challenge comes is our government doesn't want to show up at your doorstep and say your old house must be re-insulated because everybody would have a fit. But we can change the code and force the builder to do it on the new home and force the end consumer to pay the money, and they don't even know that it's happening, Bitely said. He encouraged those considering home buying to do so sooner rather than later, since the increase in home prices due to the building code changes will pose a threat to those looking to have access to what some refer to as the American dream. A dream many have, but with a competitive, scarce, and now skyrocketing housing market, some may never see. Again, by design. Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, Laura, sent us the following statement. Laura is in the midst of the statutorily required process of updating the state's building codes and welcomes feedback from all stakeholders to ensure adopted codes meet the needs of all Michigan citizens. Adopting internationally recognized codes beyond being required by the statute ensures the state is best positioned to leverage new building techniques and materials to reduce construction costs, improve energy efficiency, and provide for safer residential and commercial structures. Wait a minute. How are they reducing construction costs with new building codes? And why are we adopting internationally recognized codes in America? We should just worry about American law, not international crap. Laura is committed to aligning the state's building codes with the statewide housing plan and Michigan Healthy Climate Plan. Andrew Brisboe, Director of Bureau of Construction Codes. I still have to do a deep dive into the Michigan Healthy Plan. I actually hear that there's some new updates coming in March. A lot is going to happen in March, in my opinion, so just be prepared. But when there's new information, I'm going to do a deep dive into that Healthy Michigan Climate Plan. There's so much going on, and I'm interested in so many things that I haven't gotten to that yet. It is important, obviously, but so is, in my opinion, United Nations and them coming through the border and everything that's going on with that. So, the bigger plan is how my mind works. So I like to look at that. COVID cash grew government in Michigan. Government jobs accounted for 32% of the job growth. You know how many businesses collapsed because of the tyrannical measures? I think it's 33%. Let's see, it's in here. Despite the growth we are forecasting, government employees account for 13.8% of the statewide total in 2025. No, where did it say it? Let's see. Governments across Michigan and the United States receive millions of dollars from the federal government. In 2023, government jobs accounted for an estimated 32% of job growth in Michigan, which a University of Michigan forecast attributes to the COVID stimulus package. In 2020, by comparison, 32% of Michigan business owners surveyed said they experienced a government-mandated closure. Michigan was a nation-leading state in that regard. So 32% job growth. So basically, they shut down the private sector. 32% of that went over to now their government. I mean, that's what I'm reading. Am I wrong on that? It is sad seeing many people go out of business. It was absolute devastation, and it was tyrannical, and I really can't believe that we did it. I cannot believe that the last 4 years have happened in some ways. Like, lockstep. We just went along with it. Majority of people, not everybody, but overall, people just let the government shut down private business. And now those private business have been sucked into the gigantic government. And this was like 10 years ago. I heard it was like 54% of all jobs in America were government jobs. So that means what, 46% of people are paying for the rest? It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And then you have this Consumers Energy backed group made big donations to Democrats before energy law rewrite. And so I wanted to thank the Human Z on this one, because I did look into it. This is just one article that I found I'm going to share with you. Lansing, 3 fundraising accounts tied to key Michigan Democrats each got contributions of at least $200,000 from nonprofit bankrolled by one of the state's largest electric utilities in 2022, according to a tax filing by the Detroit News. The large expenditures, sorry about that. I accidentally clicked an ad on the side. The large expenditures of Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy, a group whose funding came from Consumers Energy, occurred the same year that Democrats won control of the state legislature for the first time in 40 years. Likewise, the contributions arrived ahead of Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Democratic lawmakers rewriting the state's energy laws in the fall of 2023 to set new clean energy standards and make it easier for utilities to launch projects to produce renewable power. In a presentation to shareholders on Thursday, Consumers' parent company, CMS Energy, described the legislation as good for all stakeholders. The presentation also said the new policies would allow for an increased capital investment opportunity. So stakeholders is a World Economic Forum term to replace shareholder. And everybody's a stakeholder, and which means nobody's a stakeholder. Like, you can just be shoved out of the process altogether under the stakeholder system, which is, again, communitarianism. They love it. Despite efforts by some state officials to shine more light on the utilities spending in Lansing, the contributions from 2022 didn't have to be disclosed publicly until about a year after they occurred. The arrangements demonstrated how electric utilities, which operate like monopolies in Michigan with strict limits on competition, can quietly make 6-figure expenditures to benefit the lawmakers charged with writing the laws that govern their business. So, in case you didn't know, our government is completely and utterly corrupt, and the energy companies are in on it. Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy is a dark money war chest that Consumers Energy has used for years to influence politics and policy making in Michigan, said Carly Weinman, communications manager for the pro-clean energy watchdog group, Energy and Policy Institute in California. Unfortunately, this shows no sign of stopping unless Michigan lawmakers quit enabling utilities to exchange dark money in campaign contributions for power in Lansing. Why would they do that when they're never held accountable? No one's stopping them. I mean, we can know about it, but do we do anything about it? Now, obviously, the whole point of my channel is to share information, because step 1 is awareness. And so the more people are aware, the more strength and numbers we have, and we absolutely need it, because we're going up against Goliath here. They have all the money and all of the businesses behind them, but we, the people, have power and strength and numbers. And so that's where we're at right now. Gotta get people together and have them understand exactly where the corruption is coming from and how we can stop it. Again, it's just say no, don't consent. Howard Edelson, the president of Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy, didn't respond to a request for a comment. The longtime political consultant is one of 3 board members of the nonprofit. Now, real quick, I'm going to be clear. When I say we can't consent, we have to just say no. What I mean is everybody, the people that are right now clearing the trees, for Gotion, they should just say no. The people that are charged with creating the building just say no. The people that are supposed to protect, these corrupt politicians, just say no. Just stop. You want us to shut off the oil rig? No. And the cop that's supposed to go and force them to stop, they have to say no. So that's what I mean. It really is as simple as saying no, but we must all do that. Can't just be one group of people. Small business can be a force. Yeah, it's just that we were kind of blindsided, right? They came at us in 2020 and we had no idea. We had no idea their plans. Katie Carey, a spokeswoman for Consumers Energy, said money the utility previously gave to Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy came from shareholders, not customers' bills. I just think it's funny, like millions of dollars they've given, and yet they want to make people feel guilty that want to keep their dams. The website of Consumers Energy, which says the company will disclose its corporate contributions, doesn't detail the annual spending of Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy, a separate entity that the utility has financed. Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy told the IRS it spent $4.6 million in 2022, including $1.4 million in lobbying, $1.4 million on advertising and promotion, and $1.3 million on contributions to other organizations. Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy gave 2 fundraising accounts tied to both Democrats and Republicans in 2022, but 3 of the 4 largest grants went to Democrats, according to the tax filing. Consumers Energy Back Group reported giving $220,000, its biggest grant since 2018, to the Reinvent Michigan Fund, a nonprofit tied to former state minority leader Jim Ananick. Ananick helped Democrats win control of the Senate in 2022 before leaving office because of term limits at the end of the year. It's unclear that what his fund did with the money because of its tax filing for 2022. It reported raising no more than $50,000 despite the reported $220,000 contribution from Citizens for Energizing Michigan. Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy also gave $200,000 to Road to Michigan's Future, the nonprofit of Whitmer, in 2022, the year she won a second 4-year term. Road to Michigan's Future reported raising $12.9 million in 2022, according to the filing. A lot of information. Let's see. In the 5 years from 2018 through 2022, Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy has made more than $10 million in grants to politically connected groups. During that same period, the Michigan Public Service Commission and the Attorney General's Office took actions to try to combat secret political giving by Michigan utilities. Right. Utilities are government-created monopolies regulated by the state, said Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, a Democrat, in a February 23 statement. Accordingly, customers of these monopolies should have the right to know whether or how much their utility is spending to influence legislation or other public policy that impacts the utility and consumers. I love how she says that, but nothing has been done. And the only way monopolies are created is government with regulations. On the other side of the aisle, State Jim Runestad from White Lake said the donations from Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy to top Democrats were the poster boy for why Lansing needs greater transparency. The people are just sick of this, said Runestad, of the ways money moves in Michigan's capital city. Yes, we are absolutely sick of it. All right, the next one is about the mega sites. I'm going to just do a quick double check and make sure I got all of the best stuff for you guys out there. There's just so much. Oh, you know what? Excuse me. Before I get into this, fire at French Battery Recycling Plant just came out. A fire at the plant in southern France is under control. The local fire service said 2 days after the blaze begun. So it took 2 whole days. The fire broke out in a warehouse containing 900 metric tons of lithium batteries owned by recycling group SNAM. The fire was contained on Sunday. The team of 5 firefighters remained on site on Monday to talk to people. French media showed thick smoke over the site at the weekend, but firefighters and local officials said there were no indications of dangerous air pollution. Lithium batteries are essential to electric devices, from phones to electric cars. However, they contain combustible materials, which, combined with the energy they store, can make them vulnerable to catching fire when exposed to heat, potentially leading to the release of toxic materials. So how is it that all of those 900 metric tons of lithium batteries started on fire, but it was no big deal? How is that possible? And lastly, EVs force technology on drivers. Lastly, before I get into this shadowy Michigan megasite article, the first time I drove a car, I didn't own a cell phone, and I paid cash for the gas. Neither is possible with an electric vehicle. Did you know that? I didn't know you couldn't pay cash for your charging, but I guess that makes sense, right? Because you have to just swipe a card. The EV revolution will create a more hostile to cash, create a world more hostile to cash, and make us all more reliant on the smartphone. Someday, drivers won't have a choice to opt out from technology they might rather avoid. Michigan Capital Confidential, once again, coming out with a great article. Sometimes you need to leave town fast. With a gas vehicle, you can fill it up in minutes and be elsewhere in hours. With a flip phone or no phone and a handful of cash, you can travel on a whim. Using an electric vehicle, that same journey requires the use of smartphones and credit cards. Access to both can be controlled or cut off, right? Everybody should know that when the Canadian truckers, their bank accounts got cut off. That's using the financial institutions as a weapon of war. And that happened in Canada, but it'll happen here whenever they dang well feel like it. An electric vehicle range anxiety would become real as you watch the mileage tick down and search out charging options. For that, you'll need a phone connected to the internet. Well, the whole problem is you won't be driving very far once you get no gas vehicles, all electric. Once you do find a charger, powering up is not a zip-in, zip-out experience. Now you must download an app, load in a credit card for payment, 2 more hurdles. Then you have to actually charge the vehicle. Most chargers in public take 4 to 10 hours to fill an empty battery, just 80%, says the U.S. Department of Transportation. There's a lot of time to be stationary during a road trip. Some chargers, if you can imagine it, are even slower than that. Due to high costs of the fastest charging option, direct current is also the rarest. Direct current can fill an empty battery to 80% in an hour. Also, who fills their tank 80%? Assuming Michigan builds enough chargers to accommodate Governor Whitmer's goal of 2 million EVs on the state's road by 2030, those will all be the only vehicles on the road. That's why she's confident in saying 2 million EVs on state roads by 2030. Because, yeah, there will only be 2 million. We'll all be in her little 15-minute cities. I say her, she's just a pawn for the World Economic Forum of the United Nations, but she's a powerful one in the grand scheme of things. And again, there's an article, Fox News, meet 5 Democrats who have been floated as possible Biden replacements, and of course, she's on that list. I'm standing by it, man. She's setting herself up in a myriad of ways, including going to from state to state talking about abortion. That is one of the ways that she's campaigning. It's a shadow campaign. I digress. We are told the loss of Detroit's native advantage in building cars in favor of uncertain EV future is creative destruction. We are told this is the way of the world. But it feels more like a choice prodded on by governments and assented to by automakers, regulated by governments, and given a bunch of taxpayer dollars, right? GM will create your electric vehicles because the government's mandating it, and they're giving taxpayer dollars. They're bribing these companies with our money to do something we don't even want. You should get a choice too. Assuming mass adoption and regulations that push the gasoline engine to extinction, the driving experience will be less free and less mobile in 20 years than it is today. Exactly. Even on the Super Bowl commercials, there was a commercial about a car. I don't know which one. I think it was a hybrid even, but the whole point of the commercial was freedom to drive where you want to drive. And the fact that they don't want you to have freedom of movement is another telling indicator. Because Elon Musk solved the puzzle Thomas Edison could not. Oh God, no, he did not. The electric vehicle is here to stay. Elon Musk didn't create anything, okay? I did a video, and I will do another one on Rumble exclusive in the future, because there's just so much information out there on Elon Musk being a fraud. He is. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing, or just a face to the government's corporations, companies. This technology, the company the government created, and then Elon Musk releases it out. It's a scam. He's not a genius. But the EV is not for everybody. Consider the unintended consequences of forcing these vehicles on the public. Can't read this whole thing, but biometric gun safes are coming to more schools. It's like, why are there gun safes in Indiana schools to begin with, but now you're going to need to scan your eyeball in order to get in to that safe? Another dystopian possibility. All right. I'm going to get into the last article. Behind the shadowy development of Michigan Megasite, Part 1. In the push to make Michigan a part of green energy revolution, the Biden admin and the Democrats have been championing. Michigan Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer has been fully on board with taxpayer funding going towards EV battery plants and other megasites in the state, claiming thousands of local jobs will be created at these facilities, as well as a boost to the state economy. The Democrats haven't seemed concerned that they have been working with companies and local economic development corporations to pave over farmland, possibly endangering the environment and the wildlife in the process. It also hasn't seemed to bother them that some companies they are working with are linked to China or even North Korea. Communities in the dark for years. Once the communities learned about the megasites that were being planned for their communities, they started showing up at governmental meetings and pushed back against the developments coming into their counties, cities, and townships. They soon realized that they have been in the dark throughout most of the planning process on these sites, and they also weren't getting many answers to their questions. Now we know that was because government officials who are supposed to be representing the people in their communities were instead signing non-disclosure agreements, which kept their constituents in the dark. The thing about these megasites is that most of them appear to have been in the works for at least a year or more before communities even became aware of them. This is able to happen because of NDAs. Current Township Supervisor Troy Stroud says that Schaefer hadn't given the board members the details that she was given when they signed the document. Okay, you know what? I am going to have to back up really quick, because this is something I didn't know. Some megasite opponents who have remained committed to keeping their communities accountable for their actions have been moderately successful on different fronts, including Eagle Township and Clinton County, who recalled their township supervisor, Patty Schaefer, because she had signed an NDA with the MEDC about a proposed project. FOIA produces NDA between Eagle Township and the MEDC. The NDA agreement that Michigan News Source received through a FOIA request is called MEDC Development Projects Advisor Confidentiality Agreement, and it was signed in two separate agreements that appear to be identical. The first was signed just by Schaefer on March 25th, 2022, without the permission of the board, and then the second document was signed by the entire township board the next day. Current Township Supervisor Troy Stroud says that Schaefer hadn't given the board members the details that she was given when they signed the document, nor were they told that she had already signed one earlier. Stroud adds that in emails that he has access to, the MEDC wanted Schaefer to personally sign her NDA before she went to the board to convince them to sign theirs. The MEDC is just so shady. Although projects for the Eagle Township megasite land have been given different code names as potential buyers have come and gone, Project Copper, Project Tiger, Project Elephant, the current development project being spearheaded by the MEDC and the Lansing Economic Partnership, LEAP, has a site name which, after being called the megasite, is now officially called the Michigan Manufacturing Innovation Camp, MMIC. LEAP has been doing much of the PR campaign for the MMIC and has been involved in helping to assemble the land for the project. Much of it bequeathed to Michigan State and is currently being farmed as was intended. The person who bequeathed this land to Michigan State was a farmer and wanted it for farming purposes to teach new farmers, not to turn into a tech facility. Working hand in hand on the project, the MEDC is what Stroud calls the muscle with the attorneys and the funding. Stroud calls the MEDC the force pushing this forward, making the other state departments work with LEAP to make this happen, right? I say the MEDC is the right fist, and because I'm right-handed, so it's the more powerful one. And then Eagle is the left. And I've been saying that, like, that's how it feels being on the other end of the MEDC and Eagle. It feels like two fists that just do damage to the citizens. They don't give a crap about us. Because of the NDA that Schaefer signed, Eagle Township residents and farmer Troy Stroud initiated a petition to recall her. The petition was successful, and Stroud became the new township supervisor. The petition was based on the fact that Schaefer signed an NDA, which gave the community limited information available to Eagle Township residents affected by the potential development. Not only do the NDAs get signed between local government entities like Eagle Township and MEDC, but they also appear to be getting signed between the economic development corporations and the plethora of different partners as referenced in the NDA itself. Those partners include businesses, nonprofits, and other economic development corporations, various state government departments, and even elected positions. As it relates to the Chinese-linked Gotion project, it's been reported that Michigan Rep. Slotkin, who is running to be Michigan's next senator, signed an NDA about the project. Well, yeah, and businesses, nonprofits, and other economic development corporations, when the Renaissance Zone was voted on, and that was the very first inkling of any idea of what was going on for Gotion in Big Rapids and Green Charter Township areas, you had Dr. Bill Pink, the Ferris State University president, who was hired under an NDA and probably, I can't prove it obviously, signed an NDA for Gotion. So he knew about it. You had business owners in the area. There was a whole list of individuals that were at the initial meeting to create a Renaissance Zone. How did they know to be at that meeting to create that Renaissance Zone unless they signed an NDA? Most of the time, these NDAs remain in the dark, far away from the eyes of taxpayers and the press. However, a recent FOIA by Michigan News Source resulted in getting access to the confidentiality agreement between Schaefer, the township, and the MEDC. Stroud, who won his election on a platform of transparency, has been true to his word and allowed the clerk to release the NDA and other documentation that pertain to our FOIA request. In the NDA, the MEDC discusses how they work with companies on development projects and how the companies might give the MEDC confidential, exempt information, which includes things like, but not limited to, trade secrets, commercial information, and financing information that isn't of a public nature. The agreement says the advisor may also provide the MEDC with their own confidential information when working on the project together. Township also hands out confidential information per NDA. Going into a deal, the agreement explains that the township may voluntarily provide the MEDC with trade secrets or commercial of financial information for use in developing governmental policy, which is it desires to be kept confidential, and that the MEDC will use good faith efforts not to share such information with third parties. However, it says that they are able to share the information with the company they represent and other partners. The agreement states that the township has to hold the information they receive in strict confidence and take all steps to protect the information and only release such information when absolutely necessary within FOIA requirements, using all exemptions necessary to keep the information private. They also request the advisors, Patty and the township, maintain the confidential information in a central place. So this central place, which contains the information described above, has not been located by Stroud or the township attorneys. Stroud says we don't have that file. Stroud believes that the township has a list of names of the documents, but not the documents themselves. The question is, was the file removed from the township or destroyed? Just like the Gotion, the new board for Gotion, they didn't have a bunch of information that was once there. So was that information deleted, taken out of the building? Like, we'll probably never know. It also appears that much of the communications information that went back and forth between the MEDC, Leap, and Schaefer was sent to several different email accounts of Schaefer, as well as communications going to her private phone texts and private AOL and Gmail accounts. In fact, Stroud says since 2022 until the time MEDC sends me the letter congratulating me on winning the election, there's not another MEDC-related email in the supervisor's mailbox. Right. Probably deleted. And this is just part 1. Part 2 and 3, I think, are available, but I will not be able to get to them today. I'm going to do a quick double check, make sure I shared all of the most valuable information. Here we go. One more thing. Bring in the UN to solve Chicago genocide. So as I said earlier in this video, this is just one example of people here in America crying to the United Nations. Flint was another example of that. Now, of course, I understand that the Flint, Michigan water crisis, we should have had people held accountable. But to ask the United Nations, a cartel outside of all nations, for help, to me is just naive. We'll be nice. It's naive. What are your military UN trucks doing in Virginia? Bemused motorist spots white combat vehicles on the interstate. Now, allegedly they were built in Virginia and they were going to be shipped overseas. Maybe that's true, but it's just, this was June 2016. So right after the, Jade Helm 15 and the Northern Strike, Operation Northern Strike occurred. So lots of indications that United Nations is hiding here in America, at least hiding vehicles. I guess we'll see, right? In the next 6 years, by 2030, we will know the plans of the United Nations. We will know what they've been planning since 92. You could go back all the way to 1913 when the Federal Reserve banking system came in, right? I want to thank you guys, by the way. I did not keep up with all your comments, but I am reading them, and you guys are on top of it. You know what's going on. Travel Around Susie. What's up over in Rumble? Money and Power. Oh, and a fence. Don't forget her fence. You must be talking about Whitmer. Did she build some kind of electric fence or something? I should look into that. Look into all the renovations that she did. Zoltan the Man. Whitmer makes the hair on my neck stand up like a dog. Yeah, she is. She's definitely not a useful idiot. We'll say that. You know, they call her a witch. I don't know if I'd go that far. You know, is she a witch? But there's definitely a lot of power behind her. And that's the only thing I can think of how she got reelected after she, again, was a tyrant. Destroying, decimating small businesses, allowing Lowe's and Amazon to stay open, and extending the lockdowns for longer than almost any other governor. Destroying our education system. Yeah. There's only one way, in my opinion. Now, you could say that Roe v. Wade being turned over and abortion, it is a key issue, unfortunately, for a lot of people, that they would vote for a tyrant just to keep that right. That worries me a lot as well. Goes back to the spiritual warfare that we're in. The spiritual war, rather, that we're in. But Ayn Rand, who says that? Indian Toes. Ayn Rand is great. I've read her book twice now, Atlas Shrugged. I know she's got Fountainhead too. I should. But I love Atlas Shrugged. Who is John Galt? And Atlas Shrugged actually is happening right now. sorry for the spoiler, but you look over in Europe and what's going on over there, the producers are tired of it and they're not producing anymore. So as much as I worry about that, obviously World Economic Forum doesn't want them to farm and they're not farming. At the same time, you can't expect people to do that, and nobody's helping them. No one's helping the farmer. So the farmers took it in their own hands. So we're going to suffer the consequences of that. Obviously, we need farmers to make food. So Fountainhead is really good. I'll have to read it. I don't know about this year. I have a lot of big ones that I'm reading. Right now I'm reading The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. So good. Highly recommend it. It's about all the different mindsets. It's an allegory about all the different mindsets that were right before World War I. All these different sicknesses, but he tells it in a story. It's amazing. I'm like a quarter of the way through now, and I'm loving it. Let's see, looking at what else we have in the chat. Indian toes. I want reparations. Sorry. Unless, if you're Irish, those are the first slaves in America, so maybe then. All right. Oh, RFK, the real Anthony Fauci, another book recommendation. I have it, haven't read it yet, but I want it in my collection. So that way when you can't buy books anymore. Nope, Thomas Mann. So, yeah. Mann, Thomas Mann, The Magic Mountain. Highly recommend that. What else we got over here? New comment. Good afternoon, sister, says Ultralogics. Hey, I really appreciate you reaching out. We're going to have to chat it up. I appreciate what you're doing as well. Which, by the way, guys, Ultralogics has a YouTube channel, and I will have it in my Substack. So, highly recommend. Another Michigander that just wants to spread the truth. So, I always will recommend fellow Michiganders. And then Patriot Paul, really quick. Let me see if I can pull it up. Patriot Paul, 1988. He has been doing good work with recording the Newaygo grassroots meetings when they host different senators that are going up for the position, or rather different people that are going up for the Senate position. And so the sound is good. Let's see here. Right here, Michael Hoover for U.S. Senate. There's a video, and then Alexandria Taylor. So basically, if you want to get a feel for any of these people that are trying to go up for the Senate position, this channel is an excellent channel to look at and see these different speeches. So, oh, I gotta do this. Boom. Yeah. Patriot Paul, 1988. Another small channel, up and coming. But yeah, anytime you see these, this is at the Newaygo Grassroots. So, and then also the Axe Michigan Tax, doing good work. Do you know who Patrick Colbert is? I don't off the top of my head. Maybe I have seen that individual. Are they a podcast host or? Dominion is how she won re-election, says Ultralogics. Yeah, you know what? I give you that the voting situation, and that's why Christina Caramo wanting to fix the voting process, to me, makes sense. It should be more important than money. But, you know, we live in a time where everybody thinks you need a bunch of money in order to win elections, instead of just, we need secure voting machines, right? All right, guys, that's all I have for you. I appreciate it. You guys know what's up. I will be live tomorrow. Again, I'm talking about cannibalism and recomposting Bill Gates, blood banks and how they use your blood and that sort of thing. So sounds a little bit morbid, but I think it's necessary to understand that this whole circular economy thing, that the World Economic Forum, no waste, right? It's like the ultimate order, the ultimate logic, and that includes bodies. And so what are you going to do with the human body? They have certain ideas, and I'm going to share them with you tomorrow. So if you're interested, I will see you on Rumble exclusive tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I can't thank you guys enough for hanging out. I appreciate y'all. And I will see you tomorrow, hopefully. Remember, love your neighbor.